In the evolving landscape of artificial intelligence, the focus is shifting from hype to real business impact. As a result, more and more organizations are exploring the transformative potential of Agentic AI, a cutting-edge manifestation of generative AI that can seamlessly integrate into your workflows, executing tasks with precision and solving problems autonomously. Welcome. I'm Chris Pullum, content strategist at CIO Marketing Services, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's webcast, titled Unleashing the Power of Agentic AI, Driving Business Transformation with Salesforce and NTT Data, and brought to you by CIO, Salesforce, and NTT Data. Today, we're going to learn about the optimal use cases for AI agents, as well as the practical strategies to overcome common implementation hurdles. To help us, we're joined by two guests. First up, we have Susan Emerson, Senior Vice President, AI Product at Salesforce. Susan, thanks so much for joining us. Would you mind sharing a few words about yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I'm an SVP of Product at Salesforce. My current remit is on our generative AI team, but I've been here for about 14 years, and I've had the pleasure over that time of having the best job at Salesforce, launching and bringing to market a number of products in the machine learning space, in the AI and the data space, and in the analytics space, and now focused on our generative AI portfolio.
Fantastic. That sounds like a really interesting role. Thank you so much for joining us, Susan. Next up, we have Wendy Collins, Chief AI Officer at NTT Data. Wendy, would you mind sharing a bit about your background?
Sure. Hi, and thank you so much for having me here today. So as you said, I am the Chief AI Officer for NTT Data here in North America. And for those of you listening that may not be familiar with NTT Data, we may be the best kept secret in IT consulting services, especially when it comes to AI and generative AI, because we are one of the few, if not the only, full stack provider where we can help clients with strategic advisory all the way down to hardware and infrastructure. And that's especially important in Gen AI because it is such a fast moving technology that we can bring the breadth and depth to all of our clients. So thank you for having me here.
Susan, Wendy, I wanted to start with the underlying trends that are driving interest in AI agents. Why are they getting all this attention? And what makes them so different from earlier manifestations of generative AI?
Well, I love that you asked this question because, when generative AI first really exploded on the market, we primarily saw use cases of using it to expose information and answer questions. But what I think is so exciting about the developments in agentic AI and the use of agents in the generative AI landscape is that not only can we use it to answer questions, but we can use it to take action on our behalf.
Yeah, I'll add on top of that, and maybe even wind the clock back a little bit. Often the questions kind of leads back to why has this been such an accelerated cycle versus the days of machine learning a decade ago? And I think it's largely due to the prominence that it's already had in the consumer marketplace and the pressure it's put on every board and every C-suite to figure out what this means around efficiency, effectiveness, and new operating and business models. So we sort of already have that as a baseline. And then the specific hop from the first generation of generative AI experiences to agents is, as Wendy was saying, really taking it beyond better search or generating emails to really doing process automation at scale that unleashes not just these huge productivity super cycles, but for many organizations, a way to reimagine how they engage with customers and becoming a competitive differentiator, not just around cost to serve models, but around delightful customer experiences as well.
So most of the early conversations around AI focused on everything it could do. Nowadays, those conversations have really evolved into what should it do? So I'll ask that question here. Could you share some examples of how organizations should be leveraging AI agents?
Well, I can start with an example. We have a large CPG client who they had done a really impressive amount of work to bring data together to become a truly data-driven decision-making organization. But the challenge with having that much data inform your decisions is that a lot of the end users had to almost become data super users. And I would say it meant that your everyday business decision maker might not know exactly where to go and how to get the answer to make better decisions in their business unit. So, one of the applications for agentic AI is to take that data for this client and not just give instructions on, hey, I would like to find out what is the best selling product across my X markets. Instead of asking that question and then getting instructions back on how to find that in the data, we actually have built an agentic solution that can create the dashboards that will then surface the answers. So it's really supercharging, putting data-driven decision making into the power and into the hands of everyday business decision makers.
And then I can maybe approach that from the perspective of Salesforce, where we're sort of gifted with this kind of dual, I'll say, opportunity and obligation to leverage all the work that we've done for 26 years with these things like Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and all our industry clouds. And I mean that in the way where, these are systems where users and customers and process and data already exists. And so in terms of like where to start and what to do, we often take I guess the think time out of the beginning of those processes, because we can enable in our software all these kind of common use cases that routinely will bring efficiency and productivity to the foreground, take friction out of the process, and deliver things more like consistently. And I'll give a couple of examples. So in our Service Cloud suite, turning on things that summarize cases, classify cases, dynamically offer answers to questions, even before a human seeks to answer them, is just pure efficiency, cost take on better user experience. And if you look at maybe a sales example on the alternative side, Wendy was using the example of like having to be that data like super user, like anything we can do to bring those insights to the foreground that inform a better like conversation, a better knowledge base around the customer, and then can drive like whatever the company's like business growth strategies are into these generative experiences that summarize customers and suggest actions, are just like huge kind of like movers there. Now on the agentic side, when we take things outside the four walls to our customer, I just ask anyone to remember the last IVR system they had, right? And how frustrating that can be, where you find yourself, yelling at a machine and trying to find the secret set of words that gets you to a human, only because it's so rigid in terms of like a structure like that. And so by bringing these conversational experiences to these high volume, high frequency customer interactions, are things that we've been moving through initially with these first wave of agentic experiences. Is just making that so much better for the users. It's so much better for the folks that need to build them and support them.
I love the comparison to the IVR systems. And, one of the ways that we often see our clients really excited about leveraging agentics is that AI agents that we develop, it can figure out what is the right next action without having to, in advance, prescribe an exact workflow. And that is a really amazing, exciting development in the technical capability that we bring to the end user to be able to not just automate prescriptive workflows like an IVR system, but to be able to have your agent determine what is the right action based on the information that they have from the user, from the caller, from whoever the individual is that's interacting with that agent.
Yeah, an AI orchestrated plan that is expecting and able to react to conversational interruptions, because that's usually how humans want to talk, and then to be able to plan and replan and ask for more information when it's needed. And then, you're asking the questions earlier about like, why this is taking off right now. I think some of the things that we've seen in our technology is the introduction of ways to I just say put deterministic controls around LLMs, right? Because LLMs are, they're built to want to please you in terms of, getting you the answer. So to the extent we can put guardrails, instructions, anti-instructions, or what are the off ramps that then would, encourage then a different channel that might have a human behind it. All of that kind of stuff has been a big accelerator for people who needed that control and comfort to take these next steps with autonomous customer-facing experiences.
Yeah, we're only a few minutes into today's conversation, and the potential for agentic already is really, really exciting. But let's talk about challenges for a minute. With any emerging tool or technology, there's always going to be various implementation challenges. What are some of the main challenges that the two of you are seeing around implementation with agentic AI?
I would say there's a couple things. One, when you was making a comment earlier about the the vast amounts of data that seek to run our enterprises. And I say seek because usually there's a challenge in terms of packaging them up, delivering them, as Wendy was talking about. I think one thing that also can paralyze people a bit, though, is waiting for data to be perfect. And so one of the ways that we encourage people to start is with a really good jobs to be done mindset. We actually incorporate that into our product by starting with the concept of what is the role or the digital worker or the digital task that needs to be done. And, anytime like things look like they're too hard to start, it's because the first step is too big. So by taking this down and breaking it into specific roles and jobs, we don't have to be paralyzed by my entire data universe needs to be perfect would be one thing I would say. Another thing I would say that is something, I guess it's not like a blocker, but it is a topic. Like we work with some industries where while they want to automate and bring agentic capabilities to the foreground, both for their employees and their customers, there's also a deep discussion about the places where the humans are actually the value prop. And you can think of many industries where is that true, like in financial services, if there's a downturn in the market, that's where you want the human and not the bot. Or in luxury goods, many of these luxury brands, they want people in the boutiques. Or if you think, and you can, think of lots of examples like this where that becomes a positive thing. I'm working with one CG company right now where that was their mindset. Like our value prop is our boutiques and our employees in the boutiques. And now they're starting to think about they're live with our product both for their employees and for customer experiences, for FAQs and order management. And now they're starting to think about the digital way they're going to do that with AI that brings to life in an AI setting the expertise that all their associates have in the store. So they've sort of kind of gone through that full cycle in terms of where it will be efficient, where it will be effective, and where it will be a differentiating experiences on multiple channels and platforms.
Yeah, and I would say, in addition to the challenges that Susan just described, we see two big ones that float to the top. The first one is related to Susan's comments about data and data readiness. What we often find when we start to scope an engagement and really start thinking through what would an opportunity look like to leverage agentics in a client's environment, that they have lots and lots of data. The challenge is the data, even if it's good, clean quality, it may not be ready for AI consumption. What do I mean by that? So we have, for example, in some of our manufacturing clients, they have really impressively detailed documentation, videos, all kinds of knowledge base information that contains content that is well tuned for humans to consume it, but not necessarily well tuned for computers to consume it. They may be images with embedded text or videos with arrows pointing to look over here or other mechanisms that humans respond and understand intuitively. But when you're trying to train an AI agent, that makes for very hard training content. So, one of the conversations we often have to have is, first of all, tell us, do you have data? And then second of all, tell us about the nature of that data and is your data AI ready? So that's challenge number one. And then I would say challenge number two is adoption. It's fascinating to me how you can have two individuals that, based on their life experiences, their education levels, their choice of professions, look very, very similar, but can approach the notion of autonomous generative AI agents very differently. I'll give you an example. I live in San Francisco, and we have a brand of self-driving vehicle that operates as a ride-sharing service. And I took my first ride a couple of months ago, and I remember I was by myself, and I was just so excited. And I was taking videos and, texting all of my friends and families, "Isn't this the coolest thing?" And one of my family members responded almost immediately with, "Wait, aren't you scared?" And this is a family member who is a tech executive who has spent their entire life in IT, has an engineering education, and yet we approached the concept of autonomous AI very, very differently. Me with excitement and them with apprehension and fear. So, I would say what we can never take for granted is that we cannot assume that everyone is approaching generative AI and agentics from the same place at the starting point.
I would just sort of also complete with a couple of other things. And one is always a discussion, not just of like readiness of the consumers for adoption, but also of the teams who build it. Back Jeepers, it was like a year and a half ago, it was always this discussion of, what does the CV look like of someone who's a prompt engineer? What skill do they have? Are they a developer? Are they a Salesforce administrator? Are they a language arts major who is really good with language? Do they come from a red teaming backwards? So there's skills that are still developing and coming to the foreground, which are very multidisciplinary. They include architecture, data, user experience, and language. So I think that is a component. We lean into that with both a combination of like no code friendliness and pro code ways to do things as a way to keep the universe of people can participate very wide. And then the second thing I would say is the where to start problem. Again, when it can be anything, like where is go? And so we had we're doing a lot of work right now on the concept of agent DevOps or agent lifecycle management. And we started at our Dreamforce event back in September with simple tools that you could point at a website, make some quick assumptions that this was customer facing, employee facing, it was sales oriented or service oriented, give it a quick job description in a one sentence, and it would build a series of agents for you. What is this agent? What is the job to be done? What would the instructions look like that this agent would need to do? And then what are actions that might be suggestive? And while that initially started as a tool to focus the mind, we're now moving that into product. And it has been the most rapid accelerator of ideation that we've seen in the space to give people like a quick, like, let's go edit it. Like, it's that agent, it's that instruction. We need to modify this thing and go. So those are things that have been helpful for like the first step looks so big.
So the two of you obviously have very clear understandings of the challenges around adopting agentic AI. But I would love to, kind of double click into where this conversation's already been going around solutions. So how can organizations overcome these challenges and get the most out of AI agents?
Well, I think what's so exciting about where we are in the AI agent technology revolution, if I could be so bold as to call it that, is that really there are so many use cases that clients can apply the technology to. And one of the things we also find is sometimes clients aren't ready to dive right into solution building. And we oftentimes help our clients decide where to start. We have something that we call an AI innovation journey to help clients come up with what are the most promising use cases and application of AI. And we help them prioritize with tools and frameworks like what we call a payoff matrix that helps prioritize. We help them identify potential opportunities for rapid prototyping. And then ultimately, that rapid prototyping process really points us towards the opportunities and the use cases and the proofs of concept that have the largest potential to drive value for our clients. And we love working with partners like Salesforce. Susan, do you want to talk a little bit about your products as well?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I would say is like the time to start was probably last year. So like a call to urgency to get going with this because it's one of these things that's the transformation plateaus just happen so fast, and if you're not in it, you miss signal and you miss the opportunity for those innovation milestones. So in terms of like the just start thing, like the tyranny of the blank screen can be an issue, and so one of the things that we've done is create a series of things that people can just turn on. And so often I'll talk to customers and literally say, please read the release notes. If this is even close, turn it on. Because when you turn it on, you get this full experience without having to do an 8-month project. You get LLMs, you get an ability to customize them, you get prompt engineering, you get observability, you get prompt engineering, you get actions, you get skills, and you get to work with an AI platform to make it your own, even after you've turned it on. So that's sort of like the guidance that we have, whether it's for an experience for employees or the ways we're packaging up these actions and skills for these agentic things that face customers, we would say, take a look at them, experiment and start. And we've been doing a lot of work just to make these capabilities available to people to start those journeys.
So considering everything we've discussed today, what does the future look like? Is it a fair statement to say that AI agents are going to take over?
Susan, do you want to hit that one first?
Well, I would say, I think last year was we've kind of moved away from all the conversations about what's your PDUM number. And it's been more this kind of steady state of, we see a real world where it's humans and agents working together. Like that is a Salesforce tagline. And that is what we actually see. And, these comments about, it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's the human using AI. Like we think that is a really, really strong sentiment to think about. Now, in terms of like future, some of the work that we're doing with customers, like we have customers that are in what I would call sort of phase one. They're using AI to do things that generate, summarize, extract intent, and it's huge productivity super cycles. Operating models and business models are not changing, but they're getting huge advantages of efficiency. Sort of the next step is when we start to use the agentic technology in ways that allow all the sense and respond mechanisms to happen with this agentic technology. And I use the example of like Bob the banker as as a way to discuss what that might look like. And, the idea around Bob the banker, if he's responsible for, or she's responsible for originating loans and selling credit cards or, issuing CDs or doing wealth management, whatever the financial sets of products are, it always starts with signal. And the signal might be the customer coming into the bank, or the signal might be something on a web page, or the signal might be a customer interaction that was not positive that needs to be addressed, but it's human received and acted on. Now, when we switch to these agentic models, we can have these process automations sense these signals, figure out what the action step is, put them in context of a larger worldview in terms of what Bob's overall goal is for the bank, suggest the next step, schedule the next step, send material to the customer, prepare the banker for the meeting, and then even help maybe take on some of the responsibility for all those KYC steps. So like sort of the high level is what can we do with sense and respond models and turn them into these like more process oriented things where the human is part of the loop, but we don't have to over rely on that to be the start.
Yeah, and then if I could just talk a little bit about the manufacturing applications. I spend a lot of time talking with manufacturing leaders, and one of the questions that gets asked of me all the time is when are we going to see, no humans in all of our manufacturing plant? The phrase for that is lights out manufacturing. And, I would just say that's the wrong way to think about agentics and to think about AI and robotics. I think part of it, we have a real challenge in manufacturing that there are not enough humans that actually want to work in manufacturing plants today in order to meet the actual production demands that our US manufacturers are seeing. So we're going to have to embrace the cohabitation, if you will, of AI, the physical manifestation of AI agents in robotics, in conjunction with humans in our manufacturing, if we want to actually keep up with the pace of demand that our economy is actually driving. So, do I think that agents will replace humans? No, I'm 100% aligned with Susan's statement that will AI replace humans? It's going to replace the humans that don't leverage AI, for sure.
So on this topic of digital labor and AI and humans working together, we like to think of Salesforce as customer zero, and we've been aggressively deploying AI in all parts of our business. And one of them is on help.salesforce.com. And so this is a help site that is agentic and run by our AI agents and also supported by our humans. And we've seen a huge impact in terms of the user experience and the efficiency of the calls. Like 83% of the questions that we used to get, mind you, they might be things like, how do I do this? And what's the answer to this question in release note, winter release? So a lot of those very, high volume, high frequent questions are now answered agentically, with only 2% now needing to go to humans. And so the more complex things are getting to the human interaction. So that's just been a terrific experience for us. Like our CEO talks about, he is now manager of both humans as well as a digital workforce that operates 24/7, 365 in multiple languages. So we're already seeing like huge benefits in terms of fast answers for customers. Like it doesn't go into a queue. It doesn't, have to go through a case that, tracks over minutes, hours, days, months, or whatever the case may be. It's answered right then and there on the spot. And so we think of our workforce now as our human workforce, all our Salesforce employees, plus our digital agents. And so, we're starting to see a shift in the narrative and the conversation around not just like agentic and not just like it's generative, but what is the digital like labor component of our workforce in the future? And, customers, with, projects afoot where they really start to think of a worldview in the future of what if you're a bank without bankers, or what if you're a recruitment company without recruiters, or what if you're a pharmaceutical company without pharma reps? Now, those are not absolute statements, but when you start with that, what if the boats get burned in the harbor? What do you need to have in place to support that workflow? It really opens up a lot of creativity about how to leverage humans and AI together.
Yeah, another way to think about that human AI partnership, and I really do believe that it is one, is, let's think about a doctor. A lot these days of what a doctor has to do is administrative and probably not the reason that they went to med school. And so one of the really exciting opportunities in healthcare is to ease some of the administrative burden that medical professionals and healthcare providers are taxed with, so that they can get back to the thing that gives them joy and to the thing that actually drives better patient outcomes, which is truly face time with their patients. So the partnership is it's beneficial to the employees, to the workforce, and also to those that they are intended to serve.
Yeah, those are some really interesting points. And Susan, Wendy, this has been a really, really engaging conversation from beginning to end. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. Before I let you go, though, I would love to pick your brain around, if our audience is only going to take one thing away from this conversation around agentic AI, what would you leave them with? And Wendy, let's start with you.
Sure. Well, I think the most important thing to walk away from agentic AI, it also applies to all types of application of AI. And it is focus on the business outcome or the patient outcome or the customer outcome that you want to achieve. Focusing on operational efficiency and how am I going to do things smarter, better, faster is great. But the real benefit of AI and agentic AI is driving human and business outcomes.
Yeah, I would echo that too. The guidance often is start with a hypothesis of value. And it doesn't always have to be cost takeout, as you say, to think more broadly around, revenue uplift, new operating models and things like that. But hypothesis of value and start. And we've got lots of ways to do that. The second thing I would say, I know you said but one, I'm going to add another. In your personal lives, use it everywhere. Like you don't learn that much by reading from a book in this category. You've got to start using it. So also find ways to incorporate it for many other tasks, and you'll become more AI literate about ways you might want to bring it into your business environments.
I think those are great ending sentiments for today's conversation. And Susan, I'll give you a pass this time because it was a great ending sentiment. So I would like to thank both of my speakers one last time for joining us. We had Susan Emerson from Salesforce and we had Wendy Collins at NTT Data. And thanks to you, of course, our audience, for joining us. Today, we explored optimal use cases for AI agents, as well as practical strategies to overcome common implementation hurdles. For more information, you can visit the resources section on your screen. You can also contact NTT Data to learn how they can set your organization up for success in the AI era. For CIO, Salesforce, and NTT Data, I'm Chris Polo.